Good afternoon, everybody. Just want to come to you and just share a few things that God has shown me lately. Um, and I go ahead and get started with the first um, prophetic dream that I had. Um, I was at this car rental business, and um, I was the manager in charge at this business, and the problem is though was even though we were a car rental business, we only had one car to rent, and of course that was the significance of that one car is that it was blue, and so. The thing that I got from that is um, the people were upset because we didn't have the vehicles to rent, so people were leaving upset, and so I just think that that's a sign of the economy. That not only is there going to be an issue with supply and demand, but also that people are not going to be buying as much. So I think that there's an economic collapse coming to America based on this prophetic dream. I also think that the significance of the blue car, if you look at Numbers 15 and 38, you see where God told Israel to put blue around the bottom of their clothes. And so blue is one of God's favorite colors. And we see that from a symbolic standpoint, we see it all around where you always see the color red and blue in opposite of each other. Even when you look at Democrats, Republicans, you look at uh, games, you look at sports, um, you always see red and blue in opposite of each other, with blue standing for good and red standing for bad. And so God told Israel to put blue around the bottom of their clothes, and I think the one car that was blue is symbolic of the rapture that is coming. I do not feel that the rapture is far away, and as you look around, you see things starting to set up, leading to that point. So this the and so the scene shifted in this prophetic dream, and I was a manager of a subway, and it was like it was my first day there or something. So I was speaking with the employees, and there were only two of them. So this particular subway only had two employees. And so the emphasis here is really not on any particular restaurant, but what's going to happen with all the restaurants. So we see in this vision that there is not enough food to fix sandwiches. And so people were coming in, and they were getting upset, uh, shouting at the employees and storming out of the store. And basically, um, you know, there was not enough food. And I think this is symbolic of the shortage going to continue to get worse as we go on. I think, people are still not really feeling the food shortage, at least not in America. Some are, but most are not. And I think we're going to get to a point to where um, people in America are really going to start to feel this shortage, and it's going to land home with a lot of people. Hey, there are issues with food, and so we continue to see cattle dying, ranchers selling off cattle because they can't afford to take care of them. We continue to see insects that are attacking crops in the West, heat droughts that are killing crops in the West. We see the Chinese that are buying off farmland in America, as well as Bill Gates and some others. And so that's setting the stage for the food shortage that is coming up. It will be, it is a manufactured food shortage, and you will continue to see the shortage get worse and worse. And so this dream, this prophetic dream, moves forward to the next scene. And in this next scene, I attend a funeral, and I was not permitted to see who it was who had passed away, but it was somebody who was really famous. Okay, this was a really famous person because the death of this person affected America as a whole. And not only did it affect America as a whole, but it affected all races. So I wasn't sure who this person was that died, but they were a very important person, and they were a major figure in America. So as I approached this funeral, I saw an endless sea of parking. So the parking lot looked like it just went miles and miles and miles. And so it was just endless, the parking. And there were people who were walking just all over the place. There were just people walking, trying to get in to see this person. So there is a major figure that is going to die, and it will shake America to its core. And so as we go to the next scene, I was in a church preaching. And when I got through, I was sitting down, trying to catch my breath and catch some air, drink some water. And people were coming up, congratulating me on a great sermon. And so the young lady who is actually on YouTube, motivating you to, I can't remember the end of it, but it's motivating you to, I think she's from Cleveland, Ohio. But she was the last person that came up to me. And she said, "Good sermon. And we would like to have you back, but you have to change some things about your preaching." And so I responded back to her with an attitude. I was like, well, change some things. Everything that I preach comes from God, like that. And so she looked at me and she said, "Really? When was the last time that you talked to him?" She said, "We want you to come back, but you must preach more on deliverance." So, I just saw that as a message that, we want to continue to tell people about the things that are coming and what's going to happen. But we also want to tell people about those things that you need to do to make it to the kingdom of heaven. And we all know that there's only one thing you can do. There's only one way, and that's Jesus Christ. And so we must preach deliverance also, that the only way out of here is Christ. And so if you're living, for the things of the world, then the Bible says that you're an enemy of God. So we don't want that. We want to preach Christ, and we want people to accept Christ so that they can make it to heaven. And so a few nights later, I had another dream, but I was only permitted to remember two scenes from that dream. The rest of the dream I was not permitted to remember. And so I will be in prayer on remembering the rest of that dream and fasting also. But the two scenes from that dream, I was on an interstate and all the cars on one side of the interstate, it was just completely packed, completely full. The other side of the interstate was empty. And so all the cars that were on one side of the interstate were bumper to bumper. And so, and everybody was speeding and they was just in such a rush. You know, it was like we were running from something. You know, we were running from something. And I wasn't sure what we were running from, but everybody was in a rush to get away. And so I looked off to my left to the other side of the interstate and I saw a car that had jumped on that side. He was impatient and he wanted to get away so bad that he actually jumped on the other side of the interstate, which had no traffic, and just started passing everybody going up the wrong side of the interstate. And I remember looking over there and thinking, that guy's going to have a head-on collision. But he never did because there was nobody on that other side. So, you know, everybody was just frantic and they were trying to get away from something. And I don't know what it was. Scene shift. And I'm standing on a building or I'm kind of like floating in the air. And I see riots. I see looting. I see just mass chaos going on. And I see like a bunch of young black people who were fighting amongst each other. And so I saw hand-to-hand fist fighting. I saw people getting knocked out. And then I looked over to my left and there were vehicles that had been overturned. And I don't know whether it was an SUV or a minivan, but there were several people, 2 or 3 people on top of this SUV or minivan or whatever it was. And it was kind of like they were celebrating, turning that car over, and they were just jumping up and down on the side of this car because it was rolled over on its side. So they were just jumping up and down on this car. And, you know, there were just people running everywhere. There was mass chaos. And then, of course, the dream ended. I was not permitted to remember the rest of the dream. Like I said, I will have to fast to try to get that. But there's a lot coming to America. And now is the time to get saved. I mean, you can't afford to waste. You can't afford to waste time because, as I said in a lot of my other videos, there are things coming with the weather. I think you're seeing the weather continue to get worse. You know, I told you guys about all the water that I kept seeing. And so we see the issues not only in America, but around the world. We saw Kentucky, we saw Colorado, we saw Las Vegas, Arizona, just all of this flooding that is occurring. And so that was one of the things that I spoke about before, but also about hurricanes and tornadoes and just the weather as a whole continuing to get worse and worse and worse. So you have to make sure that you have things right with God. You can't afford to continue to live wrong and get left behind, because like I said earlier, that time is approaching and you're going to see things continue to get worse with the weather, with war, with all sorts of things that are going to be going on. So it's time right now, and Jesus is the only way. And so, you know, will you take the path of destruction, which is broad and many will travel by it, or will you go on the path of righteousness to life, which few would travel by? So, you know, the choice is yours, but don't wait too long because time is running out. And you're going to continue to see some things that are going to occur that is going to be unbelievable to you. That you're not going to believe these things are occurring. Things coming from the sky. I mean, things occurring in the sky. And so remember, America is already on the time clock. Our 7-year time clock started in 2017 when the first eclipse came across America from Washington down across through South Carolina. And in 2024, the second eclipse would come from Connecticut down across and go out of New Mexico, around that area. So God has placed an X on America for deletion and started that clock because America has turned its back on God and has gone away from his word, and it is embracing sin. You name the sin, it's occurring, whether it be homosexuality, adultery, fornication, lying, cheating, what you think of, you name it, America is doing it. And it is just such an evil country right now. And, I really hate to see a country that I love turn its back on God. And that's what has happened, because they're even after the children now. They're attacking the children and they're after them. And so it's just really saddening to see the things that are occurring in America. But it's time to get our acts together and follow Christ and do his will. So the deception is real. Don't believe everything you see just because it's on the news. I'm telling you, Americans are being deceived by those above us, and the news is reporting what they're being told to report. A lot of things that you hear and see are not what they appear to be. Okay? There's a plan in place by those who are higher up to execute certain plans to get a certain reaction out of Americans. They want a certain reaction out of Americans. They really want to get to where a civil war gets started. Civil war gets started, what happens? They proclaim an emergency, and the Chinese come in as peacekeepers for the United Nations, and America is disarmed. So be careful how you react to things around you, because that's what they want you to do. They want you to get out of character. So God bless you. God keep you. Until next time.